So we have the ceremony, it's lovely. And meanwhile, there's an old friend of mine at the wedding who's getting drunk. And, I'm just like, oh, you know, it's okay. Cause she was getting loud drunk.
Okay.
And so then she came over to give me a hug and she laid all of her weight on me, put her foot behind me, and proceeded to trip me. And in the white full on wedding dress, I fall down. Then she proceeds to walk away. And I had a friend who was there and she said, "You did not." And so my friend goes after this girl.
This is
She's
at your
like,
wedding.
this is at my wedding in a very small space, and
Right.
everybody it has the attention of everybody.
Right. So Lori, I'd love to start off by learning just a little bit more about you. And then I'd love to kind of get into the details about you and your business, but mostly about your relationship that you've been in for how many years?
27 years.
27 years. Wow. Cool. So tell us a little bit about you, kind of like your background. I just love to kind of get to know people because I haven't had the opportunity of really learning all that much about you. I've just like known you a little bit through our photo shoots and some interactions there, but I'd love to like know a little bit more about you and kind of, I mean, I know you through marketing, but give me more like the real Lori.
Well, McKenzi, first of all, thank you so much for having me on this call. I grew up in Orange County, California, one of those California transplants to Las Vegas. And I have to share with you, I've lived here for around 17 years now,
Okay.
and it's absolutely provided me so much joy. I wouldn't want to live any other place than Henderson, Nevada. Absolutely love it here. And it's afforded me just really great career opportunities and friendship opportunities. And it's just a great place to live. Yeah, but marketing is my passion, along with extreme rock crawling, off roading, and hiking, and running, and healthy eating and healthy lifestyle. And so, all those things together, I just really feel like have made me, just who I am today.
So let's get into that nitty gritty of like where you met your husband. What's your husband's name?
My husband is Dennis Mann.
Dennis.
So 27 years ago, actually core to my being is my faith in God. And I went to a church service at Saddleback Church,
Okay.
and I wasn't feeling that well. So I wanted to go home, but I'd made this commitment to myself that I was going to go to the Cowboy Boogie and take country line dance lessons. So I really didn't feel like it, but I went and did it anyways. So I walked in and I saw this handsome man, and I thought to myself, I need to meet him. He was with a girl though. So what do you do? He was with a girl. And I thought, he's so cute. I got to meet him anyways. And so the woman that he was with came up and introduced herself to me and said, "I am Dennis's sister, Debbie." And she just proceeded to get to know me and introduce Dennis. And then she took me to the bathroom and she did this full on sales pitch for her brother. She even got my phone number. She took away all the hard work, and this was back a long time ago before we carried cell phones. So she even called me. I lived at my parents' house. She called my parents' house for him the first time. And he took up the hard work after that. But I knew when I met him that I'd met somebody that would change my life forever. I really definitely had that feeling, kind of had a vision of who I wanted, and, through prayer, also just who I was seeking. And it's changed my life forever. That's for sure.
Yeah. So how old were you when you and Dennis met?
I was 27 and he was 24. So I am the
Oh,
cougar.
I love it. So 27 years ago, you were 27. Wow.
Yes, I am 54.
Okay. So tell us a little bit more. So this country line dancing event was at Saddleback.
No, 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 no. It
Okay.
was at the Cowboy Boogie, which, if any of you are listening to this, and I hope there's just a lot of people out there listening to this, it is in Anaheim by Disneyland. It is the old American Bandstand building. Of course, it's been gone for a long time, but if anybody was hearing this, there's definitely some memories at the Cowboy Boogie.
That's fun. So it was a bar.
Of course.
Okay. And then they had like you were learning how to line dance because there was like a school or there was a teacher, or it was like you showed up and you kind of picked up line dancing through watching others, or was it like a class?
It was a class.
Okay.
So we learned line dancing and we learned how to cowboy cha-cha and other kinds of dancing. But yeah, it was a class that we all
That's fun.
participated in. Yeah.
That's fun. So then do you continue to dance now?
No, sorry. But when we go to weddings, what's fun is, we always dance together and he's a great partner and loves to dance and has a lot of energy. And he can do an egg roll, which is kind of fun.
What's that?
It's a breakdancing move where you like
What?
spin on your head.
What? Oh my gosh.
I have to like really get him going to do it, but then he does, and everybody gets around him and claps. He did it at our wedding.
That's so
I
fun.
have pictures.
That is so fun. I love it. I mean, I find all of this so interesting because I love learning about couples' story. So after you kind of got courted by sister, Debbie.
It wasn't the whole, it was just the first.
Yeah, yeah. So tell us like kind of what progressed from there. Like, was it a really fast romance? Was it slow? Did it take years to get proposed, engaged? Tell us like kind of that process.
It was pretty fast. Like, and I was kind of seeing other people, and I just knew that. And you know how people come and go, and you meet the right one, and you just know, and everything else falls away.
Mhm.
So I think we dated for 3 months, and then we lived together. Lived in
Okay.
sin. So we lived together for 3 years. And that was a foundational time for us as well. Even during that, his mom came in and moved in with us, so it's like definitely not without challenges, but yeah. And then we got married.
Nice. So tell us about the proposal. Do you remember?
Well, I'll share with you before the proposal. Like, I
Uh-huh.
wasn't pushing to get married. I'd been married before for
Okay.
1 year when I was like 24 years old. And so I
Okay.
was kind of a little bit like, didn't have to get married. But Dennis's nephew died. And at the gravesite, he became a Christian. He gave his life to the Lord. And
Okay.
at that time, things just started changing for us. And I think that he really got convicted of, just getting married was the right thing for us to do. So he started planning. He, of course, enlisted his sister, and he wanted to do it in some place that was meaningful for us where we had a memory. So we went to Knott's Berry Farm and we saw Diamond Rio. And he went to the little chapel that's at Knott's Berry Farm in Buena Park,
Mhm.
California. And he got down on his knee and he proposed to me. And I said yes. And we got married not too long after that.
How long after?
I think less than a year.
Okay. Okay. So not like a huge planning process, but you still gave yourself. Did you elope?
No, no,
Oh,
no.
okay.
I have great wedding stories if you want to hear them.
Yes, we want that's the juice.
Oh, I got some wedding drama for you, McKenzi.
Okay, give it.
So we decided to get married at my parents' house. I wanted to come to Vegas. It was before we were living in Vegas, living in California. I just thought it'd be easy. Let's go get married in Vegas. And Dennis
Yeah.
was like, absolutely not. And he convinced me, and we decided to get married at my parents' house. But the question is, where are you going to get married at, right?
Mhm.
So my parents have a pool in their backyard, and so Dennis decides that he is going to build a stage over the pool, and
Okay.
he's going to turn the gazebo around facing the house, and that's where we're going to get married. And so building a stage over a pool is a tricky pursuit because we had 75 people there on top of the pool. And if it breaks,
Everyone's
that's
going
not
Yes, okay.
So it's kind of an interesting story. He was building the parking structure at Disneyland, the newest parking structure there.
He's an engineer or something. Is that
My husband is a superintendent, a concrete superintendent.
okay? So he can actually do this. Okay, he's not just some DIY. Okay, at least you're giving me faith in this project a little bit more.
And he did have it engineered,
Okay,
but it wasn't totally, the engineer didn't really give the total sign off on it.
okay,
So he had stringers, which are the steel supporters for this garage that he was building at Disneyland. So he actually borrowed those from the job and used those for the foundation to stabilize the stage. So he used those, across the pool, and then he put the wood on top, and then he nailed that all in and he painted it. We had our friends over, and it was a pretty big undertaking, right? It was
right.
painted white. It was beautiful. And he turned the gazebo around, and it was just, my parents had a beautiful backyard, it's this beautiful wedding of my dreams, right? So we have the ceremony, it's lovely. And meanwhile, there's an old friend of mine at the wedding who's getting drunk. And, I'm just like, oh, it's okay. Cause she was getting loud drunk.
Okay.
And so then she came over, and McKenzi, I think you remember, I'm a pretty small girl. I'm 5'3". She came over to give me a hug, and she laid all of her weight on me, put her foot behind me, and proceeded to trip me. And in the white full on wedding dress, I fall down.
Wow.
And then she proceeds to walk away. Not not help
Okay.
me up, not say she was sorry, nothing. She just walks away. And I had a friend who was there, and she said, "You did not." And so my friend goes after this girl.
This is
She's
at your
like,
wedding.
this is at my wedding in a very small space, and
Right.
everybody, it has the attention of everybody.
Right.
So she runs after her, but this girl gets a hold of my friend's dress and tears it off. Meanwhile, her
No.
dad's
No.
there watching this whole thing. And there ensues a cat fight at my wedding. My sister-in-law has to get into it, and then my uncle is like dragging them away. So my uncle drags them away, and that was all at my wedding. But in the end, it was a beautiful wedding and a memorable wedding.
Yes, memorable, and nobody fell in the pool.
Oh, and so then, of course, this was May 1st, 1999. So we have to do the YMCA. So we're doing YMCA. We're jumping on the deck, and that was the big test. Would the deck hold? And you could feel it, but
Yeah.
it held.
Oh, good. I thought you gave us a little bit of foreshadowing into that, and I was like, oh gosh, people are gonna fall right into that pool. But the cat fight, you did a little plot twist to a cat fight. I like it.
I mean,
But
would I have preferred there not to be a cat fight at my wedding? Absolutely. But it's a good story.
yeah.
So.
So did she leave after that?
She left. My mom helped her. My mom had so much forgiveness, and it's all fine. I hope she's okay in her life, because yeah, it was just
You
unfortunate.
never really had an interaction again.
I didn't really need to.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. And that kind of leads me into the question of she was invited to your wedding, and it sounds like it was an intimate affair. It was an intimate event. How many people do you think you had there?
I had around 75, and at
Okay.
one time she was a close friend of mine. Like, we went out together,
Uh-huh.
but to the Cowboy and places like that. But people fall away, and they do their own things, and that's kind of what happened in this situation.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Just to kind of like know, I'm like gonna speak a little bit to the listeners. If you are planning a wedding, know that these are good things to kind of take into account too, is that like not everyone that might be at your wedding you might be close with forever. And that's true of my wedding too, like there are people that I had at my wedding reception that I'm no longer necessarily, I'm not like have bad taste or anything. You just fall apart, and or fall not well, you fall apart too a little bit here and there in life, but or you fall away, you're you're not connected forever necessarily, and that's okay. I think that that's just the nature of life a little bit, so. But let's move on from the wedding. So tell us kind of like the next stage of, actually let's talk about that first year of marriage. Everybody always says the first year of marriage is the hardest year. Do you have any like thoughts on that? How do you feel about that with Dennis? Like, I'd love your insight on to kind of that, if you can remember. I mean, you've been married 27 years, so.
Well, so actually, our first year of living together was really tough.
Got it.
So we worked a lot out in that process of the first 3 years. I remember he had all these t-shirts, like all these t-shirts, like he collects t-shirts from everywhere. And I'm like, why do you need all these t-shirts, And he would like leave his stuff around in like piles and just like leave it there. And then I would put it away because like I can't handle stuff like random stuff hanging out.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, things like just little things like that. But then you kind of get into a groove where, okay, if I leave my stuff, it's going to get moved. So I might want to, you kind of get your little spaces and, how you're going to live life, together. And it did get a lot easier. But I always tell people to be prepared for, conflict because we went from the first 3 months when we first dated, we didn't have a single argument, right? And when
Right.
we first moved in together, we had a lot of arguments.
Yeah. And so, did you have any tips that you remember and maybe that you use today, or things that have changed through your progression of marriage on handling conflicts? Do you obviously start to know your partner, and that's great. But sometimes the things you like learn about them are the things, in my experience, I'm speaking from experience here. The things I love about my partner are sometimes now the things that also drive me bananas. And actually, somebody told me that so long ago, and I just never believed them. And I thought that was kind of funny to it comes up now for us. But do you have anything that you can suggest to people for conflict resolution, or any of those like golden nuggets you're like, wow, that really works for us?
Well, I'm going to share something. As I said before, my number one is my faith. And
Uh-huh.
so I pray every day and I pray for my marriage every day. And if I was to give the biggest tip for success, that's it. Like
Okay.
that's been the biggest foundation along with, going to church and Bible study. And, McKenzi, you see me, I'm a normal girl, I just know that my faith in God has really been what has been the foundational element that's helped my husband and I make it through some tough times.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then we made an agreement when we first got married that if we were ever in a really super bad fight, to, you have the little like tips, but in a really super bad fight where there was a lot of disagreement, we would high five each other and make an agreement that once that happened, we would dissipate and stand down.
What?
You know,
That's an amazing tip.
Yeah. And so it doesn't happen that often because
Uh-huh.
most of the times it's more of like a conversation, but
Right.
it's definitely come into play. I mean, it's definitely for my side and his side, like, and you have to have humility, right? Because everybody wants to be right.
Right.
And there's a commitment to not being right. And I will also say that I have the conviction, God gave me the conviction to always listen to Dennis. So when he says something, and plus he's not after me, right? He loves me. So when he gives me feedback that might be hard to hear, I listen and I don't get defensive. And I'm really super committed to that because I can only see, I have blind spots. I can only see a certain part of myself and he sees everything. And if I'm, not showing up how I want it, how I should show up, he tells me, but not often. It'd be hard to take that like on a daily basis, McKenzie. And
Yeah.
it's not like that. I mean, it's just there's sometimes that he gives me feedback and it's just being open to talking things out is just super important. And I would say, before we got married, the church that we were going to required us to get marriage counseling.
Mm-hmm.
And, that was huge I
Yeah.
mean, my goodness, we spend all this money and time and stuff that really doesn't matter, right? I mean, think of all the hours we waste watching TV or the movies or whatever. Like, I mean, you're being entertained, whatever. But what's your marriage worth? What's your relationship worth? What are you willing to invest in it? You think it
Right.
just should come naturally? You're trying to blend two lives, two disparate lives. Like you have to and make the investment.
Yeah. So what are some things that you do to make investment in your relationship? Like what do you like to do?
We have, for all these years, had Friday night date nights
Every Friday.
every Friday. We're committed to that. So, people, there's definitely things that I say no to and don't do because that's our night. And there's things that he says no to and he doesn't do. And it doesn't have to be super extravagant. It's a commitment to each other and trust and believe, like it's a commitment that's paid off. McKenzi, granted, we don't have children. Like, I
Mhm.
get it. Like, it's hard when you have children. I don't know how you do it when you have children. All I know is my journey, and that's been super important to us. And then, like I was saying earlier, like going to Bible study, having people in our lives to, you know, that are a positive influence on our marriage. Because believe me, we've had friends that have not been a positive influence on our marriage. Like, you are what you hang around.
Right.
Surround yourself with good and people that are uplifting your marriage. And if you have people around you in your life that are tearing down you or your marriage or not supportive of you in little ways, it's those little ways where you're like, are they really supporting me? Or are they just hanging out because my husband's here?
Got it. Yeah.
Make the hard decisions.
Yeah. I love what you just said about uplifting your marriage and being around those people. I don't think that you hear about like you're the sum of the people you hang out with and you kind of hear things like that, but I've never actually heard someone say that specifically about your marriage. And it's so true. It's like one of the greatest tips I've ever heard because you get in a funk occasionally or whatever, and you might complain and or you might complain about your partner or whatever. And it is so true. You don't want to necessarily be around somebody that's just gonna like, you want a friend that can listen, but then you also want them to be a voice of reason or kind of lift you back up like you just said. And I think that's some of the best advice I've ever heard, honestly. So good. What a great thing to say. Thank you. um
Well, thank you for listening. I think that it's important in life. And, it's like something I'm still learning because, when we go through hard times, it's always that choice of who are you going to tell?
so
Don't tell
true.
everybody. Don't tell everybody because they'll remember it. They'll hold it against the person. And if they're not helping you or helping your marriage, you don't need that. You can still keep a relationship with them. Just be thoughtful about, what you share.
Be thoughtful about what you share. Another one from Laurie. Tell us what a typical date night with you and Dennis involves. Like, let's go through the whole list. I want to hear what you
Oh,
guys did when you were in your 20s, 30s, 40s, and during COVID. I think that maybe I'm just curious for myself, but we do try to go have a date night every week, and very, like you're saying, you have to be very committed to it. There's definitely times I'm like, but anytime we get out, it's so good. It's good for our relationship. We do have children, so it's a time to be just with each other. But I will say that sometimes the ideas get a little, or we do the same thing over and over, which is okay. But I'd love to know the good, the bad, the ugly, beautiful, the fun, all of them.
the boring.
The boring, yes, the boring, because that's life, right?
We get stuck in a rut. Like, we live in Hendo. We live in Henderson. I love Chinitas. I love just going and chilling at Chinitas.
What's Chinita?
Chinitas is like a Mexican Asian off of Water Street, which, by the
Oh,
way, they promised us Water Street forever, and Water Street's amazing. It's, Juan's Flaming Fajitas, but we love Janitas. So,
Yeah.
anyways, we go there a lot. We just
Okay.
go to dinner, McKenzie. I don't have anything super sexy for you.
Yeah. You're like, well, let's do this.
We just go to dinner. We don't even, every once in a while we'll see a movie or whatever, but we just go to dinner. On Saturday, we go in the jacuzzi or we have a fire in our backyard. We try to go out camping or hiking as often as we can or off-roading.
Yeah.
That's our other passion. But yeah, just dinner. And it's really just been the same way. When we lived in Orange County, maybe different places in Orange County, but just the commitment to sit down and break bread together, and connect.
Yeah. So then do you have a hard time prompting conversation with each other after a week? I mean, it doesn't sound like it, but I have to ask the question. Do you ever like get in a rut with your conversation?
Absolutely. And
Great.
sometimes McKenzie, I just let it ride
Okay.
because I don't think that's bad. I think that marriage includes silence.
Uh-huh.
That's just me. But then there are some days where I have a lot to say, and there are some days that he has a lot to say. And then there are some days where I do conversation starters. A lot of times for me, that's like more, I try to remember my favorite times that we've had together. And so then I start bringing them up and asking him, what his favorite times are. Or I'll ask him about memories from his youth, or I try to remember things from his work and ask him specific questions about work, or what were his highs, what were his lows of the week or of the day or of a project, or what's he struggling with, just really trying to listen and hear him when he talks and not be in a rush to say my own thing, and just really honor him in that way.
That's awesome. I'm actually constantly always working on active listening. Like maybe that's even a reason I started this podcast, is to like really pay attention, in this time, like we're very like, oh, shit, I gotta look at my phone. Okay, I gotta catch up on that. Hey, I want the fajitas. You're not even really there. You're not even there. And that's something that I'm personally always trying to work on now, like with everybody in my life, not just my husband or my family, but everybody. And it's like a skill. You have to like really be committed to that other person and listening to what they have to say so you can have conversation. You can remember that, he might have been struggling with that job site earlier in the week, or whatever, then you can follow up. So I think that's something that I also try to do, but it seems like it's serving you guys well.
Yeah, and I want to make a comment on that. I am shy.
Oh,
And networking is hard for me, but networking is a big part of my business.
uh-huh.
And it really depends on it. So I'd go to these networking events and it was just like, oh, well, first of all, I hated them. And then I was just like, how do I do this? And like people give you conversation starters. They're like, say this, this, and this, where did
Yeah.
you come from? Because nobody comes from Vegas, right? But I found the biggest thing that has helped me, that has served me well, is I ask people, how are you?
It's so true.
And I stopped. Just like I just that
Yeah.
awkward silence you
And
just
then I
felt.
was
And
like, did she ask
I look
me?
in their eyes and I listen, and they can feel it. They can feel that I actually care, number one, and that I'm listening. And I set it like as a standard to myself. Like if there's anybody who's willing to engage in conversation with me when I'm out somewhere, then that's my conversation. I'm not looking for the next person. I'm not looking
Right.
to make a certain amount of connections. Like if you're willing to engage with me, then I'm going to show up for you. And some days in a marriage, you're not, well, you don't feel like showing up. That's got to be okay. You got to be just like, this is not his day to show up. Like that's okay.
Right.
As a woman, you don't go try to fix that. You let them sit and be in their space. You don't take any ownership over that space. You let that space be, and you own your space as a woman.
Oh, dang, girl. I like it.
I've gone through, you know.
Yes. Give us more. Give us more, Laurie.
That, you know what, McKenzi, that is my biggest thing. I mean, I listen to, I mean, one of my biggest things, I listen to my friends and they engage, they argue with their husbands and they start calling names. And I have to say, oh my, how did you even get into the name calling? Because some things allowed that to be okay. And it's not okay. It's never okay to call names for either one of you. When somebody's in a bad space, you let them be in their bad space. You don't interrogate them. If they're starting to like not be kind to you, just don't don't fire back. Just wait until they're in a better spot. That's what I do.
Yeah. That's probably true with, again, not just in marriage and every area of life, right? I mean, that's definitely true in my experience in parenting as well. So, like, just let it be, give comfort, you know what I mean? So that's great. Well, let me see if I have Ashlyn has any more questions. So let me kind of do a quick recap. I mean, you gave us a lot of wonderful things here. I took a bunch of notes, but you listen. I think that's probably one of the faith is very important to you. And you practice your faith together. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. And then you're very active in listening and spending quality time with Dennis, it sounds like.
Yes.
Yeah. And then enjoying some of those activities that you do together. I do actually want to hear a little bit about this rock crawling. I'm just personally very interested in it. Is it with a vehicle or with your bodies?
Well, I wish it was with my body because I'm into physical fitness,
Yeah.
but it's not.
Okay.
I will share with you that I used to have my own Harley. I used to have my own
Okay.
Dyna lowrider, and my husband had a custom motorcycle. And so that was a phase, like you were talking about
Yeah.
phases. That
Yeah.
was a phase. Oh, we went through the boat phase too, all the phases you go through. So then we ditched the motorcycle for a rock crawler. We had a
Okay.
Jeep before that, but a rock crawler is like a Jeep on steroids, and you crawl up in the buggy or the Jeep the face of rocks. So a famous trail that, we love to do is the Rubicon Trail, for example. But just, right here, in Summerlin, Red Rock, there's some rock crawling there that you can do, the backside of Red Rock. But it is just a good way to get out there and explore. And now we did it, I want to say about 7 or maybe 8 years, and I was petrified of driving. And then I just started thinking about it. I thought, I want to drive. And so then we were out on a trail one day, and Dennis said, "Do you want to drive?" And I said, "Yes." And that began, I started with easy trails, and then I just feel a sense of peace and calm when I'm going up extremely hard rock obstacles because it takes all my energy to focus right there. And that to me brings peace
You
in my
have to
life.
be present, right? You
Yes.
can't be like thinking about other things when you're on that. I'm on this journey of mindfulness right now, and it's people like you inspire me. And when you say things like that, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like because she's like in it. That's what you're doing. That's what you're supposed to be. So you can't think of anything else. It's like a bit of a little meditation in and of itself, right?
Yes. And my business, I have to say, talk about my business
Yeah.
because my business is such a huge part of me. And it's the same way. Like when I have time and I don't have to be out and I'm just doing my work. Like last night I worked till 9:30 because Dennis is like on a work thing.
Uh-huh.
And I was just so focused in on it. I made myself stop because I needed to go to bed.
Uh-huh.
But my business is my work, my joy, my craft is the same way. I love the focus that I have, that I get to have, and the opportunity to express myself and create for my clients is just the joy of my life.
That's so awesome. I actually have another question because you did mention running. Now, does Dennis run with you, or is this something that you do to fulfill your own? You know, the people that I see in successful marriages, like from the outside, I'm not in their marriage, so I don't know, but it seems like people have some of their own interests, then they have interests together, and they kind of have their own things. I'm just curious if Dennis is a runner too.
He'll run with me.
Uh-huh.
So he does run with me every once in a while. He is a mountain biker.
Got it.
So that's his thing. Running's been my thing since junior high. It's depressing for me though, because he doesn't run on a consistent basis. And when he does run with me, he kicks my butt every
Yeah.
time. So you know, but we run together. I make it to the end with him.
Yeah.
I ran a 5K with him and I came out top in my class because I stayed up with him. So yeah, he'll run every once in a while with me, but he loves a good mountain bike ride. And what better place to mountain bike than here?
Yeah, so true. So true. Well, I love talking to you. I love learning about you, and it's fun to learn about something about someone other than just their business and through networking and then stuff like that. And so this has been a really fun interview for me. Is there anything that you think like, gosh, I really wish we would have touched on that or this or anything you'd like to add?
I just want to thank you, McKenzi, for being an amazing photographer who really cares.
Oh,
And
thank you.
the fact that you're doing this shows that you care about helping people in their marriages. And if there's just one person out there who's listening who may be struggling and you've helped them by providing this podcast, then it's all worth it. And it's just my pleasure to connect with you. You're a wonderful human being. And I thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Oh gosh, goodness. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Lori.